2020 may not have been a good year for many people, and unfortunately, even for you. And if you are hopeful that things will get better in 2021, then you're terribly mistaken. Let's take a look why this year will be even worse for you. If you live in America, Europe, Asia, Africa, or in the Middle East, you may or may not know that these places are having serious political issues that lead to protests, riots, and even war. And this year, most of these problems haven't been resolved. There are also many countries that are becoming even more hostile to one another, and the tension increases as we enter 2021. When people are upset with their government and nations conflict with each other, what follows next is destruction. Because of this pandemic, most countries have been forced to borrow money from world banks, thus increasing their debt and losing the value of their currency. And if you think that the powerful countries are doing well, then think again. Contrary to what is being reported by mainstream media, these countries are also experiencing economic recession. The budget of your local government is all gone, and with the threat of another lockdown because of a new strain of the virus, where will your government get the money for that? Now, for many of you business-minded people, entrepreneurs, and small business owners, this year has undoubtedly affected you in some way. For some, it opened new opportunities, but for many, it ended their livelihood and their careers. I hate to give you even more bad news, but there's going to be more unemployment leading to an increase in poverty. More and more businesses will close down because they cannot operate in these conditions. Why is this bad? For one reason, competition is going to be even more fierce. And because of this pandemic, companies are relying more on technology instead of people. Robots will now replace you and take your job. And since small businesses can't compete with the bigger corporations supported by the government, there is going to be more monopoly, with larger corporations getting bigger and bigger, making it impossible for smaller businesses and startups to operate. Now, if you work for a company, got fired, and are trying to find work, this is going to be an even greater challenge for you. So many new laws and restrictions have been put in place this year, and spoiler alert, these laws and restrictions are only going to get stricter and more severe. Don't be fooled. We are given false hope that there is a chance that things will go back to normal, or that things will ease up. But in reality, governments, leaders, and corporations love these new laws and restrictions because it gives them more power to tell you what to do. If you learned anything this year, you would know that your leaders did not consult you or your community for the changes they made. They simply made new laws and rules and implemented them regardless of your consent. If you're young and watching this video, This might seem normal to you, but these things that pass as normal were unspeakable just a few years ago. It is extreme and at times unnecessary. The more power you give to your government, the stronger it gets. Given our current situation and all of the technological advancements being made, we are experiencing a new way to socially interact with one another. I don't want to disregard the benefits of technology and how it connects us. But with all these advances in technology as the new and most common way to interact with people, it does have a downside. Using your senses to touch, see, hear, and interact with someone in person has been replaced by a device that you turn off and on. There's a huge difference when you are physically interacting with someone. You're more careful with the things you say or do. You're sensitive and respectful towards their feelings. You're responsible for the bonds you create. You're more mindful of your behavior and how people think of you. You tend to be more considerate and empathetic. A lot of people, especially the younger generation, are learning the opposite when they interact with people online. This phenomenon is only getting worse with each new generation. So with all that said, and with everything that's going on in our world, how can you get through this year and the next? I want to address everything I mentioned. Let's start with government. It is very important that you do your research on the policies and laws your leaders are passing. You should also be well informed with what is going on in your country. Ask questions like, why is this happening? Is it a good idea or change? Is there a bigger agenda? How will it affect me and others? Don't just rely on your local news and social media. Be more critical when trying to understand the entire situation. And if you're trying to explain politics to someone, give simple examples and make it easy for them to understand it. What you allow your government to do will dictate your nation's future. Now let's talk about the economy and what options you have concerning business and work. You can't change your country's economy, but you can change your strategy when the economy is going up or down. Now this is important because you and the people in your community have to understand this. Support small and local businesses. Help and provide services for each other. If the people in your community support one another, you will survive and even thrive. When starting a business, you should always have goals and a plan A, B, and C. It's important to plan ahead, make transitions, and adapt to the changes that might happen. Don't follow the crowd or fads. Fads only work when you have nothing to lose. But if you want something to last longer, build something people constantly consume and need. Think of this. In the worst case scenario, if your country's economy is completely gone, what thing or service can you provide for your country? Business will continue with or without an economy, because people still need things from each other, even in the smallest of communities. Now, if you're looking for work, then you're going to have to adapt and learn more and even completely new skills. Why? Because the demand for the job you had has been cut to 50% or is totally gone for good. This means that the skills that you have are no longer needed or no longer enough to get hired. As I mentioned earlier, competition will increase, and so too will the standards for hiring. So what should you do? You're gonna have to polish your skills or do something completely different from what you were used to doing. It's not going to be easy. Working never is. But if you're really determined, you'll get a job one way or another. And finally, social interaction. This whole situation might be normal or safe, but if you choose to live this way, and if we raise our kids to this new and safer way of communicating and interacting with people, we are only embracing an abnormal way of living and training ourselves to be more fearful of others. There are many restrictions that our governments pushed on us to follow, and most of them are unreasonable and absurd. The risk we face now is not as high as the risks we face every day. There are many cures and solutions to these problems, but they are not giving us these options. And that's the most unacceptable part of this situation. Many people only follow what they are told to do because of fear that is being spread all over television, news, and social media. But if they are properly informed, then they will realize that there's nothing to fear. When the world tells you what you can and can't do, it's really your choice to obey or find a better way.